Welcome to the Expert Edge. This is the show where we bring on experts in their fields of health and wellness practice and hear their stories and learn what they see working in the field of diabetes reversal and prevention. I'm happy to introduce today's expert, Evelyn Kissinger. Welcome, Evelyn.
Thank you.
Evelyn is a lifestyle consultant, registered dietitian, international speaker, author, and teacher. Her passion is to help people reach and maintain their lifestyle goals for vibrant health. As a nutrition and wellness consultant, she specializes in creating and implementing successful interventions for individuals, groups, and corporations. She's an adjunct professor in nutrition and wellness at Andrews University and lives in Berrien Springs, Michigan, with her husband, Peter. They have 4 adult children and 10 grandchildren. So I think she's retired and enjoying that part of life a lot.
Yes.
Yeah, so it's great to have you here, Evelyn. I'd like us to start by talking a little bit about how you got interested in this intersection of health and lifestyle.
Well, I went to the University of Tennessee and I was studying dietetics and nutrition, and of course, just loving learning how the things that we do, our lifestyle choices, and especially nutrition, affected our body and brain. And as I was studying there, I met someone who was a Seventh-day Adventist, and I started going to some interesting meetings, and I realized that the Seventh-day Adventists really have a lot of interest in health. And I saw that as being really amazing that we're combining health with our relationship with God, and our body is the temple of the Holy Spirit. And so I have pursued my career in helping people to enjoy vibrant living, physically, mentally, spiritually, and socially.
Oh, I love that. And I am curious, like you were in college studying dietetics. What got you started doing that?
Well, I actually took an elective while I was trying to figure out what I was going to do in college. And I kept changing my mind. And so I had to take an elective, and it happened to be nutrition. And I was just amazed as I studied, going to classes. I loved it. And I said, this is what I want to do.
Oh, that is interesting because people come into this area from so many different directions. And so it's always interesting for me to figure out, like, how did you get started? So I appreciate that. And as you shared a little bit earlier, you found that not only the intersection of health and lifestyle, but biblical principles really pulled it all together for you. And I know you wanted to start by sharing something from the Bible about health. So tell us, what is it that kind of is on your heart about that?
Well, I just love the book, the story of creation and the story in Genesis, and that God is all about giving us life. He wants us to have joy, pleasure, and freedom in our lives. And in Genesis 2:7, it says that God breathed into man life. And I think that daily God is giving us life, and that one of the first time "give" is used in the Bible is when God gave food, and what a beautiful gift that is. And that He says, "I've given you every food-bearing seed." And you may be a gardener and know that when you put a seed in the ground, it will grow. And so if we eat foods that will grow, again, we know that as we eat them, they're actually going to give us life. So that would be like beans and grains and anything that has a seed in it, like vegetables or fruits that have seeds in them. Those are the things that's going to give us life. And God wants to continue to give us life on a daily basis. And He also said in Genesis 2:16, when he created the garden, He says, "You're free to eat anything in this garden." And there was such a variety of things. And so He gives us things to enjoy. It actually says it's a command. It says that the Lord God commanded them to eat from all of those trees in the garden to enjoy it. So that first commandment He gave us is to enjoy. And then He said, "But you have to make a choice. There is a place that I do not want you to go. And if you eat from that tree, then that is doom."
Mm.
It was actually about choices. Do you want to serve God or not? And so I think that Genesis, this especially here, tells us to enjoy and to choose. And we on a daily basis can enjoy and we can make those choices that can make a big difference in our life.
Absolutely. And I think that's so fundamental to what we're going to be talking about here today, understanding that God is all about having us enjoy our food and he gives us choices about our food. And so we're going to talk about what are the impact of the different choices we can make. And I know that as we think about diabetes and blood sugar issues, something that often is connected with poor glucose metabolism is carrying too much weight. And you've done a lot of work helping people, motivating them, encouraging them in choices that help them to come back to their ideal weight. And in that process, often reverse or prevent other diseases like diabetes, prediabetes, and metabolic syndrome. So let's kind of dive in. And I'd just love to hear from you in the time that we have for this interview. What are successful strategies you have found in your own experience, in your teaching, to change your body one bite at a time?
I've been working with diabetes since 1975 when I graduated and started working in a hospital and meeting patients. And so I've been very curious about this. My grandmother was an insulin dependent diabetic, and I knew that if I did not watch, that it was very possible that I could be as well, because I do have sensitive blood sugars. And so I had an extremely high interest in how to maintain health in my life. And I too have relatives that have the same kind of issues with heart disease and diabetes and obesity and those kinds of things. And one of the opportunities that I had was to be in a study where we went to the Marshall Islands. The Marshall Islands is located in Micronesia, over near Guam and Saipan, kind of in that area. And people there expect to die in their 50s of diabetes. So a team of us went in, and within 2 weeks, we saw significant changes in their blood sugar levels, in their weight, in the way they felt, and seeing the progress in such a short period of time. So this was a therapeutic intervention. And a few of the things that we did there, I'd like to share with you. Not only does it help with blood sugar levels, but it also helps with weight because the same principles will apply. So I think that one of the best places to start with both weight and weight control and also diabetes is to get enough sleep.
Now, that's not where most people think you're going to start.
No, because sleep is what balances hormones, and you can't fight hormones. And so the appetite hormones, there's an appetite hormone that tells us to go eat, ghrelin, and then one of them that tells us to let's stop eating, which is leptin. It gets all confused. And you may notice, people may notice that when they don't get enough sleep, they have more munchies and maybe want the sweet things.
Yeah.
Also, the cortisol levels are higher when we don't get enough sleep. And that also affects insulin levels. So hormones are a big deal when it comes to appetite control and blood sugar control. And you may notice that when you have high blood sugar levels in the morning, that could be reflective on how well you slept last night. So getting at least, I think at least 8 hours, they say 7 to 8, but I would like to, especially when a person has some lifestyle issues, disease issues, to lean in to these practical things that we're going to talk about. And it'll be, you kind of start with going to bed 15 minutes early and then try to get in that essential sleep that balances our mood and our appetite.
I love that. And so the first thing we're thinking about today is using sleep to help balance our hormones. That's so powerful and it's such a simple thing in many ways. Yet I know people
Simple
struggle.
but not easy.
That's right. It's simple but not easy because people often struggle with changing their habits around a late bedtime. So, what are some strategies people can use if they're looking at what can I do to improve this area?
I think, first of all, just realizing that needs attention and to say, okay, I'm going to give it a try. And looking at trying to get to sleep, am I sleeping 7 or 8 hours a night? And if not, trying to go to bed a few minutes earlier. Getting enough sleep matters by getting good melatonin. And good melatonin is produced by getting sunlight during the day. And early morning sunlight seems to be very effective in helping to produce that melatonin at night.
Mm,
So getting enough sunshine, eating healthy food, trying to stay away from blue light at night, being on devices, making sure your sleep area is nice and dark and cool so that you can get some good sound sleep and just trying not to worry, I guess, in helping us to get to sleep as well.
Okay, those are great tips. And if we have that sleep piece that we're working on or getting it in line, what are some other strategies that you would suggest?
The next one is to take care of your microbiome.
Mm,
And your microbiome are those little bugs, that bacteria that lives in your gut. And they do all kinds of interesting things. And one of the things they can do is help to balance your blood sugar level. They help with mood. They help the way our brain works. And all of that is important in making good decisions as well. So the microbiome is influenced by what we eat. And the best food for keeping a healthy microbiome is eating foods that have fiber in them, dietary fiber. And dietary fiber is found in whole foods. It's in beans, whole grains, fruits, and vegetables, just like what God gave in the garden. Those whole foods that stimulate the production of the good microbiome, the good bacteria in your gut. And it also helps to fill us up and keep us fuller longer so we're not into the snackies um, in between meals.
mm.
So in Marshall Islands, one of the things that we did therapeutically is to give them the highest fiber food you can get. And guess what that might be?
Highest fiber.
Highest fiber is beans. You know, most cultures have in their from long ago, they have survived on beans and grains.
Mhm,
And that's not such a common food in a lot of people's diet.
mm,
And we gave them like whole grain cereal with all the toppings for breakfast. But the magic food we gave for breakfast, which sounds pretty strange, is we also included a serving of beans.
mm,
Now that sounds very strange, but we gave them beans for breakfast, beans for lunch, and beans for supper.
mm.
Um, Now, this was a study, and we reversed diabetes very quickly. So you may want to edge into increasing the amount of fiber that you're eating instead of just going, swinging in full force.
I'm
But that high,
curious.
yes,
In that study, when people went from a traditionally low fiber diet to that very high fiber diet, like kind of overnight, sounds like,
yes.
did they have any complaints?
Well, sometimes there's more gas produced, there's more flatulence. And
Uh-huh.
so the other thing that we actually included, and is a very strong recommendation that we'll talk about next, is walking and
Mm,
taking a 10-minute walk after every meal. But the result of the whole program was the comments I heard over and over. They would say, it feels like a fog has been lifted from my brain. So they saw not only the blood sugar levels becoming normalized, and that they had more energy, but they noticed that their brain was working better.
Mm.
Cognitive function was improved. And with that comes it's easier to make good decisions when your brain is working well. And
Yeah.
so, yeah, and so having this high fiber diet, and some people like to count the grams of fiber. Now, if you're eating whole foods, it probably does not matter. But when I teach diabetes, I teach making sure there's enough fiber. A lot of people count carbs or that kind of thing, but the carbohydrates that you find in fiber foods like beans and whole grains, those are very slow released into your system. And
Mm.
so it doesn't do a spiking like you would have if you had a refined food. So those are very safe foods. And if you do carb counting, you know that you're supposed to subtract all the fiber grams from the carb grams, and that so it actually reduces the actual number of carbs. I don't recommend carb counting, but that's what you could do if that's a program that you're on. But to include plenty of fiber, and I recommend for diabetes at least 50 grams of fiber in a day.
Mm.
And so you're looking at 15, maybe 20 grams of fiber at each meal.
Mhm.
That's going to fill you up, keep you full longer, and slow down how the glucose is released into the system. So it's a gradual release into the system. So you have a nice control over the next 4 to 6 hours when you
Mm.
have adequate fiber in your diet.
I
And
think that's I
of
was just
course,
going to say, I think that's really key, to pay attention to fiber, even maybe more than you're paying attention to carbs, as long as in
absolutely.
general they're coming from whole foods, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yes. If you're concentrating on eating more, especially those fiber foods, it's naturally going to get rid of the other things. What people tell me in the first class, we always talk about eating more fiber. And when they come back the next week, in a regular seminar that I do, they say, I'm not craving sugar
Yeah.
as much. I'm feeling more satisfied. I'm sleeping better, because when we eat better, we sleep better too.
Mhm.
So having more of these, and some people get scared because the volume of food is so much greater. Because the calories, it's a nutrient dense food and not a calorie dense food when you're eating vegetables and whole grains and beans.
Mm.
And so the amount of food that you eat is much greater, and your satiety, your feeling full is so much more satisfying.
I think that's really amazing. And it's such a, like you said, simple thing. And just really takes a little intentionality, like actually thinking ahead, figure out how do we do this. And I know you've mentioned that you kind of have like this three-legged strategy to make changing your body, losing weight, whatever it is you're trying to do here, one bite at a time. What are those three legs?
One is to create a lifestyle. Create a lifestyle where you're getting plenty of sleep, you're getting good fiber, you're getting some exercise in during the day, you're choosing water over any other beverage.
Mhm.
And if you're serious about getting your blood sugar under control and reducing your weight, choose water and drink at least 8 cups or so a day. So choosing a lifestyle. The second is creating an environment. So it's easier to make good choices. We are so influenced by the things that surround us. So
Mm.
don't have things sitting out on the counter where when you're walking through, you can grab a cookie or whatever. Hide it so it's not right in front of you. And when you decide to go out to eat, think about what you're going to eat before you go. and where you're going to go, so that it's not, I'm starving and I'm just going to eat whatever. So setting some parameters around the environment that you're in can really help. So when you go to the grocery store, don't go hungry, you know that. And then when you fill up your cart with good stuff, then you're going to fill up your cupboard with good stuff, and then you're going to be more likely to eat good stuff. So making that environment, and also having those tennis shoes or walking shoes at the door. Make it easy to get outside and go for a walk. Carry your water bottle with you. These are environmental things that you can do to create a positive environment. And the third thing is to create connections. So it's create a lifestyle, create an environment, and to create connections. We need each other, and find someone that you can hang out with that is following some healthy principles, because we tend to behave like the people we are around. So when you find someone who's interested in living healthfully, find you a partner that wants to move along this journey with you, then it's going to be easier for you. We need each other to be encouraged. And also in that connections is to create a connection with God. A lot of people don't think about praying over lifestyle choices, but we live in an environment that is really calling us usually to do things that aren't the best for us. And when you wake up in the morning, you say, I'm thankful for this day, and God, please help me to make healthful choices today so I can take care of this body temple. And when I actually learned about the verse, your body is a temple of the Holy Spirit, it's a sacred place. And to take care of our body, it's a responsibility that we have. And we're certainly going to feel better. We're probably going to be nicer to other people, and also have the energy to serve other people as well when we take care of our body.
I love that. And I love that you brought out the importance of social connections. I remember seeing a study where diabetics, after all other factors were controlled for, did better, lived longer if they had a stronger support system than those who didn't. So, that all by itself, that is a great factor for supporting health. One of my mentors likes to say, you're the average of the 5 people that you hang out with the most. And so, like you said, choosing some associations, some friends, maybe joining a group where other people are also trying to be responsible and make good choices around health can make a big difference for you. And I don't think we should underestimate that in any way, because these relationships that we have with people, as well as you brought out our relationship with God, are also vital to good health, emotional health, spiritual health, and physical health.
You're absolutely right. And whenever I read some of these studies, I go, oh, this is the most important. And when I read about sleep, I go, this is the most important. When I read about fiber, I go, this one is the most important. And social connections, I go, this one is the most important. And they all are just so influential in our life, and influential in helping us to reach and maintain our healthful goals.
Absolutely. Before we close, do you have any like words of wisdom, specific things that you come to your mind that you're saying, if you're dealing with blood sugar issues like metabolic syndrome or pre-diabetes or type 1 or any of the other type diabetes, what are some of the things that you would like suggest people really prioritize?
Well, first of all, I would like to say that for most people, diabetes can be reversible, type 2 diabetes. And even type 1 diabetes can have better control and often use less insulin when following these healthful lifestyle principles. And sometimes you hear once a diabetic, always a diabetic. And that is not necessarily true. That I have seen many people reduce or improve, for sure, their blood sugar levels by doing some of these simple things.
Mm.
So I would say paying attention. Changing habits is something that can be quite a challenge, but the more we do the healthy thing over and over, the more our brain gets wired in that direction. And so the repetition, practice makes permanent. So the more times we do it, the more times we get up and have that healthy breakfast, the more times we go for that walk after a meal, the more times we get to bed on time and we connect with other people and we remember that prayer and ask God to help us. I think those are essential keys to staying on track.
I totally agree. And so much of what we've been talking about involves building new or different habits from habits we currently have. And being consistent, building those new pathways in our brain for the new habits can be so important. I think a piece that I've often noticed is that even when people know exactly what they want to do and they might even start doing it, that accountability, like having somebody that you report to, somebody that is tracking with you, can really make a big difference in that consistency needed to build a new habit. Do you have any suggestions on what are some of the ways you've seen people make themselves accountable as they're trying to build new habits?
I think choosing a partner
Mm.
is one of the best ways to go, is that you have a partner. Perhaps you would like to hook up with a health professional, but uh, having your own little list of these are the things that are important to me, and maybe it's one thing that I'm just working on. And studies show us that if I'm paying attention to one healthful habit, that I naturally do other healthful things. So choose that one thing that maybe we've talked about today. Is it putting on those walking shoes, or is it trying to incorporate more fiber, or is it trying to get that sleep in? Maybe just choose one of those and say, that's the thing that I'm going to start moving forward to, and tell someone else. Tell someone else that you heard this today. This is what you're going to do. And maybe say, would you like to do this with me? That can be very, very helpful.
I love that, Evelyn. That is such priceless advice. And I have seen that work over and over again. And I just want to say thank you so much for being with us here today, for sharing from your long experience of doing this work with people, and to say thank you for the work that you have done and that you continue to do to spread the good news of good health. And I'm just really glad you could be here today. This has been a really fun interview. And I want to let you all that are listening know that you can find the contact information for Evelyn in the description below this video. So if you want to reach out to her, maybe this raised some questions in your mind, and you just want to connect with her, the information for how to do that will be in the description below this video. So feel free to do that. And remember that health is wealth, and it comes by choice, not by chance. I'm so glad you joined us today.